Welcome to Alumni Connections. I'm so excited to bring you the fabulous, my fellow board member, Stephanie Akunvabey. She is amazing. She's done a case study on sound business. She's an alumni, ready to get into it. I'm going to play this Alumni Connections theme song here, see if I can make the technology work once again, and we will bounce a little bit to this fabulous theme song that I got here going on.
This is the Alumni Connections Project. We all know Randolph is better than the rest. Even when you progress, you still gotta rep. Philip Randolph Campus High School. But this is not a test. You should say it with your chest. Be proud of your origin.
Not too bad, right?
Proud, supported then. Stronger together through unity. Better together. Let's build the community. Randolph isn't a school or a building. It's a legacy. It's not in your past. It's your identity. So show some pride. Alumni Connections sponsored and brought to you by SBI, CCPI. SoundDownBusiness.org. SoundDownBusiness.org. The journey doesn't end with graduation and prom. The journey doesn't end with graduation and prom. The journey doesn't end with the journey doesn't end. This is the Alumni Connections Project. This is the Alumni Connections Project. Philip Randolph. Philip Randolph.
Got the whole piece to it that way, yeah. Not too bad, right?
Nope.
So let me do this here. We got Stephanie Akunvabey is an experienced director of academic affairs with a demonstrated history of producing exceptional results in the higher education industry, skilled in program development, team building, public speaking, faculty development, and fundraising, strong education professional with expertise in college access and completion for underserved groups in the U.S. and abroad. She has written a case study that talks about the model that SBI, soundbusiness.org, follows. I'm so excited to have her with us today and have alumni connecting with you. Thanks for being on the show, Stephanie.
Thank you for having me. This is super exciting.
So I want to just kind of like catch people up who don't know you or haven't heard from you in a while. What are you doing? Where are you at? You are a doctor. You serve on the board for SBI. Talk to us about all that and everything else you got going on in your life right now, and then we'll get into like the Randolph adventure and bring everybody up to date with your movement from Randolph and beyond.
Sure. So right now, my day job, as I like to describe it, is that I serve as the interim assistant dean of academic affairs at Kingsborough Community College, which is part of the broader City University of New York. It is work that I definitely take pride in. Kingsborough is Brooklyn's only community college, and my love for education, what access to education means for so many people, definitely drives what I do on a day-to-day basis. I've been at Kingsborough for a little over 11 years now, in a number of different capacities, and that day work definitely serves as an anchor for the things that I choose to do in my free time as well. As you mentioned, I am a board member of SBI, and I've been very, very actively engaged in the work that SBI has been doing over the past few years to support New York City youth, and in terms of what college access looks like, in terms of thinking about what career prep looks like and personal development and growth for New York City public school students is work that I care deeply about, and SBI gives me the space to continue to explore that outside of my day-to-day 9 to 5, as I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to just plug a couple of things that we have in the works right now. We have this virtual gala that's coming up, and you're raising money. I've already dropped the link down below to see, so folks can check that out. I'll share the screen here. We're raising some money for the nonprofit, and I think our interview today. I've been interviewing alumni, but you're deeply involved in the work and you're on the board, so it gives us an opportunity to talk a little bit about this. We have Anderson Pack, who's a part of our virtual gala, which is very exciting because he's kind of bring the youth and the culture in. But we always do an amazing show with our students and the performing arts and all the passionate folks that talk about the success stories that come from Randolph and particularly from the SBI program. And then tomorrow you are, let's see if I can share this. Tomorrow you are combining forces with several alumni to present Alumni Speak at 7 p.m. Eastern, October 1st, discussion on racial equity, the economic crisis, and how to draw our path forward. Let me see if I can share that screen so we get all our commercial advertisements out of the way nice and early here. And I'm really excited about this because not only are you going to be there, who I know, and Kelly Downey, who's also on the board, and Wanza Lamoma, who's going to be on the board, and Anthony Rodriguez, who I know very well, but I have not spoken to or heard from Jennifer and LaShawn and Alicia, so I'm excited to see all of them and their individual roles. It's going to be a very exciting program, and I'm looking forward to that. So I hope people will sign up, register for that. It is free, and then hopefully you get a lot of value from that and you want to donate to the upcoming virtual gala on the 11th. So you're doing your thing at Brooklyn Borough. You are on the board of SBI. I know you got stuff going on in your own life, and we'll get into that as well in the development. Where did you go to junior high, and how did Randolph end up on your radar?
That's a really good question. So I went to 271, which was a local junior high school, literally like a 7-minute walk from my home. And at the time, Randolph.
In Brooklyn, right?
What was that?
In Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn, yes. Yeah. In Brooklyn, Brownsville to be specific. And at the time, Randolph was really ranked as one of like the top high schools in the city, right after sort of like the specialized high schools. And so I had support from teachers there who felt like Randolph might be a good fit for me. And just kind of ended up applying, and lo and behold, probably didn't consider that it was going to be over an hour commute from Brooklyn to get to Harlem, but did it and committed to it and stuck to it. And I'm so grateful in hindsight now that I did, because of what Randolph and specifically the experience at SBI did for me. It really launched me into a path that I couldn't have imagined. But do
you remember your first days of like stepping on foot, like you're doing this commute, and now you get up to the school in Harlem, and what that was like?
Yeah, so it's funny. I remember they had a mandatory summer program that you had to do in the summer prior to the start of the semester, like your first fall semester as a freshman. And so I remember going up there, and it was actually really important, and the more that I think about it, because part of what they highlighted during that summer program was who A. Philip Randolph was and why it mattered that we were going to a school that was named after this really, really extraordinary individual. And I just appreciate that there was a space there to learn about that legacy in terms of who A. Philip Randolph was, what his contributions were, and it made the building more than just like some randomly named building. And so I was appreciative of those insights. So I have fond memories of those like first kind of moments on campus.
And how did you get involved? Obviously, I mean, you were saying, the impact that SBI had on you and everything, but how did you get involved in some of those programs? Because I don't imagine that it was just like you show up and now you're, in all these different programs, right? So how did that happen?
Yeah, so Mr. Thompson, everybody knows Mr. Thompson. He actually reached out to, there was a teacher, Miss Gaspar, who was in charge and played an integral part in the Humanities House at that time. He was doing a Black History event, the way that, SBI is notorious for putting on these fabulous school-wide events that really engage students who are in the program, as well as the broader just student population as well. Long story short, he was looking for a student to do a Black History speech. Actually, I want to say it may have specifically been to support Martin Luther King Day. And for some reason, Ms. Gaspar selected me, and she said, Stephanie, write this speech, and I'll help you. I'll help you. Just do the best you can, and I'll help you. And I remember coming back to her with it, and she said, did you write this by yourself? And I was like, oh, is it that bad? She's like, no, this is really good. And she worked with me on that. And the reason that is that moment was so key in my long-term, like everything that I can think of as far as academics and career are concerned, is because that connection put me in touch with SBI. And that's how I became engaged in SBI's programming. But I wrote my college entry essays about how terrified I was to deliver that speech to the entire high school. And it was primarily because, one, stage fright, but I had performed speeches or dances that other people had created. It was the first time that I had to present my own words, my own thoughts, my own ideas, in a public forum that way. And I was terrified to do it, let alone to like my high school peers. It was just like, this is a nightmare. But it gave me an experience that helped me write my ticket into colleges. That's really what I wrote my college essay about. So super important moment for me.
Yeah, I love that, because so many stories, including my own, I can tie back like what I did later to a confidence building moment in the past, and having that opportunity and somebody giving you that opportunity, right? That's really amazing. All right. So talk to us about, freshman, sophomore, junior year, kind of what's going on as we're getting through Randolph.
Yeah. So I remember probably, I want to say my sophomore year, I went to the tryouts for the step team, the girls step team, sisters only. And then I didn't go back the second day. Again, just terrified. But by my junior year, I bravened up and I was like, all right, I'm going to go join the sisters only step team. And I ended up doing that my junior year. And it was great. It was just a nice sisterhood. It was a form of art and performance that I had not considered. And SBI is wonderful at creating these spaces of creativity for students that they had not previously considered. And then by my senior year, I was, talk about being set up for just wonderful career opportunities. I worked extremely closely with Mr. Thompson. I was basically like the office person before there was an official like super internship program. I was basically an SBI intern. And it taught me so much about how to manage things, what office dynamics would look like. He really trusted me. That's been one of the beautiful parts about SBI, is that the students have such an opportunity to create what the program looks like in terms of the programming, but also just the supports that they provide for each other and the supports they provide for the organization itself, because it gives this sort of like career experience that you wouldn't ordinarily have.
Absolutely.
And so between that, and then afterwards, actually the summer after graduating from Randolph and going into college, I was afforded an opportunity to get an internship with Time Warner.
And talk to me about, I don't want you to skip over like the decision-making process on how you chose where you wanted to go and all that stuff. Yeah, go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, so I applied to like 14 colleges because I didn't think I was going to get accepted anywhere. I was just nervous. And it was a new process. I was the first in my family to go to college. Nobody knew what a FAFSA was or how to apply for financial aid. And, I was talking to my family about the price tags on some of these schools that, I was applying to. And the 1 year of tuition was probably more than what my mom was making for her salary at the time. So it was like, yes, we believe you're going to go to college. I just don't, my family hadn't considered all that it really takes. And so SBI was essential in helping me navigate through that process. I remember through support from Randolph's General College Advising Area, we had these application waivers. And that was like gold to me because the applications were like $60 a piece. And the fact that I could apply to these schools for free, I was like, I'm going to apply to as many as I can. And SBI was essential in just helping me figure out what types of institutions would be a good fit for me because I had no clue. And so I remember being asked to consider small liberal arts residential institutions just to get a different scope of the world, a different perspective, to see something that I hadn't seen. And those were the types of institutions that I ended up applying to. And grateful that I did. The tactic in terms of how I selected the school I went to be really, really transparent. Like I just remember talking to my mother and I was like, I got accepted to a number of different schools. This is who gave me the best package. Can we figure out the rest? Like this is the best financial aid package I got. Can we figure out?
So what were some of the schools that you applied to?
So, I remember I applied to Northwestern, Drexel. Wow, you're asking me to dig way, way back. And ultimately, I ended up going to Agnes Scott College, which at the time it was a predominantly white women's college. Now they've diversified their student body quite a bit. It's no longer a predominantly white institution, but it is a women's college in Decatur, Georgia. And again, just the encouragement from SBI to even step that far out of my comfort zone.
And was the major reason what you were saying that they offered the best financial package?
They offered a great financial package, and it was small. They had less than 1,000 students. The ability to go to a place where, like, there was an intentional focus on the student experience, on creating people who would grow up to contribute to society. That was meaningful. I always say that I not like, the mission of Agnes Scott was that they would create women who would think deeply, live honorably, and engage in the social and intellectual challenges of their times. That has stuck with me, and the seed for that about being able to give back and to engage was a seed that was planted definitely during my time with SBI, and then nurtured in such a magnificent way while I was at that school, that it's not hard to imagine now that I'm on the SBI board and, doing all these other things, but my educational experiences encouraged that trait. And I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to us about the transition from going from city life to Decatur, Georgia. Now, I don't know much about Decatur. I've been to Atlanta and done the touristy thing in Atlanta, but that's about as deep as I've gone. So tell us what life was like switching over from Brooklyn and Harlem to Decatur, Georgia.
Oh, goodness. It was a good time. So Decatur actually isn't that far from Atlanta, gratefully. So if you need that kind of more of a city vibe, you can get it. But still, New York City is New York City for a reason, right? Like it is a city. I remember trying to go to sleep that first night and those crickets were just like, I was like, what is this? Give me back my sirens. How am I supposed to sleep? This is crazy. So that was one thing, which was actually pretty funny. And then there was just like this huge learning curve, right? Being the first in my family to go to college, having this low income background, being a girl from Brooklyn, I had an accent. Everybody thought everything I said, they were like, coffee talk. And I was like, who sounds like that? I don't talk like that. Um, they said things like tennis shoes. And I was like, I've never played tennis a day in my life. Why would I say that? These are called sneakers. It was all those kinds of things, right? But it really got at the point that SBI was trying to drive home, which was go somewhere where you will see, learn, and experience something new. And then it just gives you a totality of perspective that is very different had you just stayed completely somewhere that you were comfortable and familiar with. So that transition was interesting. The other thing, being first in my family to graduate, to go to college at all, let alone graduate. I remember freshman year, this young lady who lived on my floor, she put this letter on her door. And when I read it, I was like, what is this talking about? Like it was a letter because I think she had gotten like a 4.0 her first semester, which I did not. Okay, let's just be honest. But she was saying what sounded to me, she was like, I'm on track to be summa cum laude. And I was like, what in the world is it sounded like summa cum laude to me because I didn't know what she was talking about. But that was one of the things about being a first generation student. What she was talking about is that she was on track to graduate with honors, right? And it was just that was such a foreign concept to me that it was something that I didn't even know I should be trying to aspire to. And
so I can imagine you're reading this note and like, what the hell are you talking about? What
what is that? Like just the language of college was something.
And there's a certain amount of sassiness that goes along with like posting that up on your door, I imagine as well.
Right. So, talk about feeling like a fish out of water. You're like, how do I navigate these things? But one of the things I always appreciated SBI for was, nope, you might not be like everybody else that's in the space, but it doesn't make you any less valuable. And you do have something to contribute, even if it's not what everybody else is contributing. And so those are the kind of things that were like SBI like kind of weaves in through the experience, and you don't even realize how much of it has stuck until you are put in a situation where you have to dig deep and figure out like, how do I navigate this here situation? And then all those lessons come back up, and it's really important.
We didn't really talk about, so this is freshman year, you're experiencing some culture shock, but we didn't really talk about where you thought your trajectory was going. Right now, obviously, you're a doctor of education. Did you know what you wanted to do back before you went to college or freshman year of college?
Oh, goodness. Yes. So again, this is really funny where, I did have some Brooklyn swag, right? Even though, I didn't know exactly how this college thing was going to go. I had some Brooklyn swag to me. So I showed up and I was like, I'm going to go into industrial organizational psychology. And so I knew enough. I didn't know much, but I knew enough to understand that if I was going to have a work study job, I should at least try to make my work study job relevant to my long-term career goals. Okay. High five SBI. We used to have, whatever. Like, let me make the dots connect. And so I was eligible for work study, and I went to the work study fair, and the human resources people were putting it on to explain what the process was. And so afterwards I go up to them and I say, this is so great. Thank you so much. I'm really interested in getting a position in the human resources office because I plan to go into industrial organizational psychology. And they were like, that's really nice, but we don't have any positions. And I was like, that's great, but the way my future is set up, I need y'all to figure something out. So in hindsight, it's like, who is this little girl? But I mean, of course,
self-advocacy. There we go. Let's get it.
Yeah, I was very respectful about the whole process. But moral of the story is, I talked to these people. I ended up getting a meeting with the director of human resources. And so she was like, I understand that you're interested in getting a position here. We don't currently have any openings. Like, what's the deal? I cannot tell you what I said to that lady. I have no clue. Her name is Karen Gilbert. Okay. She was the director of human resources at Agnes Scott College. And I had a meeting with her. And by the end of that meeting, they had gave me my little work study position. And I was quite pleased with myself. So, moral of the story is no, education was not what I thought I would be doing. I thought I was going to do this element of human resources. And it was because it was what was familiar to me. My grandmother had worked in human resources for the New York City Human Resources Administration, Department of Human Resources Administration for a long time. That's where she retired from. She only had her high school equivalency, but had managed to secure that job. So it was familiar to me, this notion of human resources. That was the only reason I had any interest in it. The way I actually ended up in higher education was because I ended up being a sociology and anthropology major in undergrad. And I had a professor, as a sociology anthropology major, you had to do a year-long research study. And I ended up doing this research study on the African-American experience at Agnes Scott College. And in doing that research project, it drummed up all of this stuff because I was very conscious about what my experiences were on that campus as an African-American student. And how it seemed to be very different than the experiences of others. And in doing that, my professor, Professor Phelan, he was an anthropologist. He said, Stephanie, you have done an amazing job with this project and you are super passionate about it. Have you considered going into higher education? I was like, I don't even know what that means. And he was like, people go to school to work at colleges. And I was like, that's a thing? And he was like, yes. So he encouraged me to apply to master's programs. I had never even conceived of the idea that I would ever get more than a bachelor's degree. Had never even thought about it.
Right. And so at what point were you realizing all this? What year were you in school?
So that was my junior year that I had done this research project, my junior year. And at the end, I had presented at these conferences, these academic conferences, where I was like, this is all weird and different. I don't know anything about this. But with the support of the faculty, again, that small school setting, they were really supportive. And so at that time, I'm like, I never thought I was going to get anything more than a bachelor's degree. So I applied to, I knew I wanted to come back to New York. I applied to New York University, Columbia, and the University of Albany. At the time, those were literally the 3 higher education programs, like practically in the state. And I knew it felt weird and pompous. I was like, I'm applying to Columbia and NYU. Like, what am I doing? And a University of Albany felt like a safer bet at the time. But at the same time, I was applying to jobs, and I had a part-time job at Target while I was an undergrad. And so I had applied to like a Target corporate position. But what I told myself, and I had applied to another job with an insurance company. And what I told myself is, I said, if I get accepted to any of these degree programs, I will continue my education. And it was just because I had never imagined that I would have done more than a bachelor's. And lo and behold, I got accepted to all 3 programs.
Oh, and wow.
What? Like literally. Like,
so were you and mom doing happy dances at this point?
We were. And you know, it's really interesting. The thing about being I think a first generation student is your family is excited for you. They know it sounds good. They like, that's my baby.
That's my daughter. I'm saying I'm pretty happy. Yeah.
Right. But the thing that's interesting and why it's so important to have like a network of people and something like SBI to kind of support you through the way, something you can kind of reflect back on, is oftentimes family and friends, that have not gone through the process, they don't fully understand what it takes. So they don't see you writing the college applications and doing all of this stuff. They just see the end result and they're happy for you, which can be interesting.
And we haven't talked about it, but you have siblings at all, or is it just you and mom?
No, so I have a younger sister. She's 9 years younger than me.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Okay.
yeah, so there's a big gap between the two of us. So yeah, that's been funny too. Just
So have you been walking her through these processes in the past and all that?
yeah. So I was really, again, and it's just funny how things happen, right? Like my own profession in higher education definitely I think helped skirt her along. She ended up actually doing a 2-year degree from Kingsborough Community College, and then she transferred and went to Stony Brook and got her bachelor's from Stony Brook.
Yeah, it's not easy to do. So yeah, that's big. That's
Yeah,
big.
yeah.
Is she working now?
She's like, both of my girls made it through.
Is she working somewhere now? What is she doing?
Oh, she is. You guys should. I don't even know if I should do this, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So one day somebody gonna see this. This thing is. Let me tell you, she is. I am literally holding. I don't know if you can see it.
I
She's
can
a
do it.
great. She is a fantastic writer. Like
Oh, wow.
literally yesterday, she just gave me. This is literally like. This is about to be on a New York Times bestseller list.
All right, you heard it here first. All right. That's awesome. That's amazing. And what's her name? I didn't see the name good.
Her name is Margot Terry.
Margot Terry.
Yes.
All right, that's yes. I forget that's your maiden name there. So Akunvabey is a later addition. Yeah. All right. So that's cool. So you got mom, you got sister in your corner. You've been accepted to all these graduate programs. So you're moving back to New York. Can kick the homesick thing to the curb. What sort of zeroed you in on NYU above Columbia? I'm assuming you're excited about coming back into the city and attending one of these prestigious universities. Both Columbia and NYU are pretty big. What leaned you towards NYU for the graduate program?
Gotta be honest with you again. It was the money. I mean, it's because finances can be such a barrier for why people choose to pursue school or not. I got to be transparent. There are times when I had to make an investment in my education, and I was happy that I understood the value of it enough that I felt comfortable making the investment in my education. But I've also been incredibly fortunate to have an abundance of scholarship support to really help these dreams come true for me. So NYU was instrument. I had a wonderful package that made it financially possible. And the other thing was, NYU's program had these international experiences. And I understood the value of having an experience and being exposed to a perspective that you are not familiar with. And so while I was in my master's program at NYU, I had the opportunity to travel to Israel to look at their higher education system. I went to South Africa. I went to Dubai, all with looking at educational institutions within those contexts. And it just really just helped shape everything that I thought I knew about education and what education looks like in this country.
That's amazing. I'm going to back up a step because I want to talk a little bit more, especially about the international experiences. But just, we had the undergrad experience coming out of Randolph. You had applied to a lot of schools, got accepted. And then the master's experience, applied to 3 schools, got accepted all 3. And I know that's a big part of what we're trying to do with students is have them applying to multiple institutions because so they can leverage those acceptances. Oh, you want me to go to school over there? Well, this school over here is offering me this package. What can you do for me? So was there a little bit of that in each of your experiences?
Yes, a little bit.
Yeah.
The one thing that I do remember learning from SBI is that it's always okay to appeal your financial aid package. Nothing's going to happen by appealing it. Worst case scenario, they say, nope, that's all we got. Or best case scenario, you present your case and they're able to give you, even if it's a little bit more, it might make a difference. So you can always appeal your financial aid package. That's like an insider secret.
Yeah, no, and I'm just one of those things that, I think one of the great and valuable things, and I love how you're applying all this back to SBI. Um, what I've gotten from being under the tutelage of Charles Thompson and everything, and what I've been able to then give folks that are in the program, but also I talk with a large number of people because I own a staffing company. So I'm speaking to young graduates that are, working as waiters and bartenders and chefs. And I've been in that place where, listen, that starting salary at the company when you go for that interview, that's a stepping off point for negotiation, and just understanding, okay, they want you to come work there. That's the time. That's the moment to make that best deal possible for yourself. So it's big in the college application process, and you want to start doing it there because it is training for the rest of your life. So I love that aspect of your story and how it intermingles with what we do in general. I love it. All right, so so talk to us about getting into NYU. Were you living at home? Were you able to, how did that whole thing work? And then talk to us about these international experiences, because I'm very curious to hear a little bit about the international scene, especially as it relates to education, because I imagine you saw some pretty interesting things.
Absolutely. So yeah, I came back home, which was nice. And then it was a much shorter commute from Brooklyn to NYU than it was from Brooklyn to Randolph. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. And I had an internship while I was in my master's program. I worked at NYU's financial aid office, which again, just valuable experience in terms of just learning so much about higher education and the finances of it, what it all looks like, and tying that practical experience into what I was learning from just the curricular elements of the program. The international experiences were amazing. Just because wherever I've gone, wherever I've traveled to, what I've come to find is that education is always viewed as a point of access and as a propellant for financial and social mobility, right? What that means, though, is that there's always a group where everywhere I go that struggles to get that access. In Israel, one of the things that was interesting to observe was how ultra-Orthodox Jews were, women specifically, were starting to, at the time, this was in 2008, they were starting to find ways to enter the higher realm of higher education and do that in a way that respected their faith. At the same time, there were Ethiopian refugees who were also looking to access higher education and looking at the types of education that these marginalized groups could access, right? Because not everybody gets to go to certain types of institutions. It was really eye-opening. Similarly, in South Africa, I was looking at the higher education system post-apartheid. I mean, 1994, to young folks, it might feel like a long time ago, but for me, that was very real. That in 1994, I was in the 4th grade, and had I been born in South Africa, the experiences that I had, just in terms of who would have been allowed to teach me and what types of, even though I didn't have I went to public school in my neighborhood. That was because of circumstance, not necessarily because of policies that were in place at that time. Right. Whereas in South Africa, apartheid was very real in 1994. And as a result, thinking about who I am as a person, what I look like, what my experiences have been, which are still, you should tune in tomorrow for the panel discussion when we're going to talk about some of these things, right?
Yeah.
But moral of the story is, it's there. You can learn a great deal about a country, its history, who it values, and what the social and political sort of status quo is by examining its education system. It tells you a great deal about what's going on. And so I've been very fortunate to travel in that way and to explore education in that way. And I did some follow-up additional travel looking at similar work in Germany while I was in my doctoral program, and also in India.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So what were the things that you noticed that were interesting in Germany and India?
So
I'm sure there's a stark contrast in incomes in both of those countries. You're talking about Germany is one of those interesting places that has had this kind of rebirth, but I think benefited from lots of participation in finance and global finance. Then you have India, which, the pictures of India I have in my mind are a level of disorganization widely across. The picture I have is electrical lines all over the place. Obviously, it depends on the neighborhood, I imagine, as it would in the United States. But that's sort of the picture I have for one of the most populated countries in the world.
Right. So in Germany, it was really interesting. Their system around higher education is very. I will not try to use any German words because I will butcher them. But in Germany, your path, your trajectory of education is pretty set from a very early age, and there you can almost know who gets to go to university and who will pursue certain types of career paths very early on, very, very early on. It gets set pretty much by like elementary school. You're on a path, and that's the path you're going to follow. So that's interesting, and to think about who gets put on which pathways, right, and what that means, because there's always an underlying story to who gets put on which pathways. Very much like how we talk about the tracking system that had existed here in the U.S. For a very long time, and exists maybe informally even now, right?
Well, that's interesting because you put it that way, because that almost sounds like a caste system. Right.
Which is what we got in India, right? So you do it, and you travel around enough, and you start to see these connections, and that's why I said, you start to think about, wow, I can really see, based on how a country treats its education system, an awful lot about what's happening in so many other spheres. So talking about that caste system in India, that was a lot of what I was looking at. Who gets access and how? And so it's interesting, in a lot of these countries, India specifically, they are dealing with a lot of what the U.S. had to deal with in terms of thinking about integration, in terms of thinking of education systems, and thinking about the U.S. Higher Education Act that's actually coming up on this 55th anniversary a little bit later this year, that was designed to create access. You think about, I told you I work at Brooklyn's only community college. You think about America pre-community colleges, and basically only certain groups of people had access to higher education. We look at HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities. We look at HSIs here, Hispanic serving institutions. Those institutions formulated from a space when there was very limited access to higher education. And we know what higher education does for people. So the story is the same internationally, is what I found. It's just those groups that get left behind. Maybe the measuring stick for how people are choosing to leave certain groups behind might be a little bit different, but either way, the stories are very similar.
All right, so I want to kind of wrap up your story, and we'll kind of get into this work, and we kind of bring this back here, because I'd love to see how you kind of apply the map of looking at all these different educational systems kind of affected your view of America, and more specifically urban education in New York City, right? Talk to us about moving from your master's education to pursuing your doctorate, career-wise, what was going on.
Mm-hmm. So definitely. So after my master's program, I went and I applied to a bunch of jobs and landed the job at Kingsborough. And at the time, I was an academic advisor, and I was teaching these incoming freshmen seminar courses to help students acclimate to the college environment. And after having a number of job changes within Kingsborough, but progressing and moving forward, I knew it was time to go back and get my degree. And so I did, and I applied to doctoral programs, and I applied to the University of Illinois, and I got accepted to in Urbana-Champaign. I got accepted there, and I was ready to go. I was like, I need this degree, like, to really pursue the things that I want to pursue, the things that matter to me. And my family was like, are you really going to go to Illinois? And at the time, I only had one daughter.
And I imagine somebody was saying, are you really going to do more school?
Well, that too.
It's a lot of school.
So they're like, yes, are you really going to do more school? And at the time I had a daughter, and they were like, what about, like, my family was like, the baby, this, the that, the da, 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 da. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you. I got to go to school. So,
how old is she now?
She's 8. So my oldest is 8. And I also have a 2-year-old.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it. I was saying the other day, because I know we're on conference calls pretty regularly, and I hadn't seen you for a while. I was looking forward to seeing you today, because I knew I'd actually see you on camera, because you're dealing with, and I got, I know the life. I got my 3-year-old in the house, and my 9-year-old, and my 12-year-old, and my 14-year-old. So I know what it's like to have some little ones running around and keeping you busy. But you're doing all that you're doing, and you got the kids, modern day superhero. I appreciate you. All right. So you're making the decision to do more school. You're applying to these places that are not in New York City. All right. Keep going.
Yeah. Cause I mean, doctoral programs are like, it's not exactly, you're not sure you're going to get in, because a lot of times the cohort of people that they were admitting, NYU at the time was only admitting a cohort every other year. Okay. So not even every year you had the chance to get in. Urbana-Champaign, University of Illinois, they were admitting about 6 people. I was like, this is woo, but I got accepted to the university and, to University of Illinois. I flew out there and everything. I remember, flying in, and it was just flat plains with snow. I was like, this is gonna be something, because it was like just flat plains with snow. But I was gonna do it, and then I got my acceptance from NYU.
And was that where you wanted to most go, or was that just easier? What was the decision?
So NYU made sense for a couple of reasons. One, it allowed me to continue my career. So I didn't have to stop. I was still working full time and working on this doctorate. And that was an adventure, considering that, as we just discovered, I already had a kid. So I was like, woo, we are going to figure this out. And I remember at the time I was on the board for SBI, and I was approaching the point where I needed to start to think about what my dissertation topic was. And I remember being on a board meeting going, y'all, I'm scared to say this out loud, but given where the organization is and what we need to do, I think there needs to be a research study to understand what SBI is, what is the magic sauce, the magic ingredient that helps people like me do this crazy stuff. Because when you look at the stats, there's nothing in my portfolio. You look at where I grew up, household makeup, family income, neighborhood, the schools that I went to, you look at it, none of it add up. But somehow, some way, I've had this other rich set of experiences that doesn't line up with what the beginning of my story was. And I remember making a commitment to say I was going to do my dissertation on SBI because of everything that I said, right? Like, I genuinely care about education. it is ingrained in me to address the social challenges of my time, and education right now and everything that's going on in 2020. If education isn't a major social challenge right now, then I don't know what is. And so I'm grateful that I was able to pursue that particular route of study, to really delve deep into what was going on with these New York City youth who, much like me, when I was looking at them, a lot of them, they were not just first in family to go to college. Some of them, their families had recently immigrated to, the United States. They were the only person in their households who spoke English. There was like this, just all this stuff. You name it, challenge, barrier, it was there for all of these students. And they were sitting across the table from me saying, but I'm going to college. I just got accepted. I'm going to be the first in my family to do it. And I can't wait to get back to SBI because SBI is what helped me do this. And so it was really, really a rich experience.
You don't make me cry, Stephanie. Jeez. I mean, seriously, because that's what it's all. I mean, at the end of the day, for me, it's opening those doors and showing people those opportunities exist. I go back to my 17-year-old self, and I live single father, kind of thing going on, middle of New York City, only child. But that kind of thing. And then you got stuff and some of the stories that we have from our students where the lights literally aren't on at home. Some of the challenges around living in Brooklyn and going to school at A. Philip Randolph, which is an hour and change from wherever you are, waking up at 5:30 a.m. in the morning as a high school student. I mean, just crazy stories, pursuing education. It is awe-inspiring what so many students are coming in and doing and having that push. That's what I needed. I needed somebody to push and give me that information and put that in front of me. It wasn't there. So you can see how so many people are lost in the system because those people, those resources just aren't, and it can feel hopeless.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I felt super fortunate to capture those stories of those students. And so it just all is crazy how it just came full circle, right? And that's kind of what the whole idea behind SBI talks about, being an inclusive grassroots cooperative. That's the idea. SBI gave me so much. And then even in me, doing this research study that definitely I think has benefited the organization, I got so much out of it. So it's just like this cycle of giving and receiving and giving and receiving that works really well in terms of what you think about a 30-year history and the network of all the people who come into touch with SBI. It's kind of special.
Yeah, let's break it down. I mean, because obviously people, and you've said it over and over again that you were inspired and that you owe so much, but you've actually written the book, written the case study on SBI. I always mess up the IGC, but inclusive grassroots collaborative model of education, right? Talk to us about why that matters. Why this program you think made a difference, first of all, in your life, why it was there to make an impact, because we've done a lot of work where we've touched a lot of students. I don't think everybody always sees that, and certainly for somebody that I'm reaching out to that has no interaction with maybe even Harlem or A. Philip Randolph Campus High School, why should they care about this college and career prep program that is in this high school at Harlem? Why should anybody care? Why should anybody contribute? Why is this something that should be on somebody's radar?
Absolutely. It's because it is a model that can be replicated. So yes, SBI is about A. Philip Randolph and about the students that it served in the past. SBI has been able to serve in the past 30 years. That's beautiful. It's a wonderful tale. What I'm so much more interested in at this point, though, is how we expand access to this to other students who are in New York City's public school system. New York City has the largest public school system in the country. And when you think about the number of people, number of families who have to be served by that system, especially in these economic times when we're dealing with so much uncertainty, the fact is you need something new to really, a new model, a new approach to really address the needs that students are going to face in terms of academics, in terms of treating and seeing the whole student and recognizing what the whole student brings with them when they come to an educational space, helping them understand their own potential, set them up for those career pieces, helping them learn to self-advocate. None of that stuff happens by accident. Like, there's something I saw on Instagram or whatever, but the excellence does not happen by accident. It is intentional. There has to be a roadmap for it. And so the inclusive grassroots cooperative is that roadmap that allows you to reach an inner city urban student who's low income, who has these challenges, to reach them in a place and give them the tools that are needed for them to leverage their own power within them. Because that's the thing. A lot of college access models are thinking that they have to give to the student and fail to recognize what it is that the student is actually bringing with them to these educational spaces. And SBI has been masterful in pulling out the potential that students have and giving them the space to thrive in ways that are unimaginable. So why someone should care? I'm not going to sit here and say that we have some magic cure-all. It takes a lot of work to make it happen. But we do have a solid foundation and a solid model that I believe lots of institutions could build off of to replicate and have the same type of just amazing success that SBI has been able to produce. And we got alum for days. I'm not, you're running this show, right, Cameron? Like, I'm just one of how many, And when you think about, I think about my own career and what I'm able to do for students who are pursuing an associate's degree. My impact of one alone, right? What I've been able to do with my career to advance educational opportunities for so many people, just with my one position, it's amplified by a bajillion when you think about all the alum who are doing their great work in their own great ways. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, no, and that's what I really appreciate about the model as well, as the peer-to-peer. You're talking about, I think, the end results of it, which is people going out and getting these careers and being leaders in their communities, in their environments. I've interviewed folks on this program that were personally passionate about bringing Latina and Black and different cultures into the medical space because the representation wasn't there. Talking to folks that are social workers and lawyers, and it's just amazing because I get inspired because you can tell these are folks that are passionate about what they're doing. They're passionate about helping, and that's really, you talk about a program that, if that's your mission and you're actually making that happen. You're talking to people that have actually gone out of the building, because I've been involved for the last 24 years now. So I've actually seen, folks that, were babies, in high school, turn into folks that I feel like I'm saluting. I mean, they've literally gone on and they've done these high-powered careers where I'm just like in awe. I'm like, can you give me a leg up? And that's something that, when you're able to give people that kind of opportunity where they're able to surpass where you are in life, it's really something. And when we do that, the way that we've done that in the school, is not from, I mean, Charles Thompson is a powerful educator. There's nobody that can question. I've certainly learned educational tactics and strategies and information to pass on to students from him, being able to, shush, the classroom management pieces of being in front of 60 students and being able to call somebody's name. And now everybody's afraid of getting their name called out. So everybody hushes down, like, those kind of classroom management things that are really key and essential. But the thing that holds it together is this model of peer-to-peer engagement. So we're bringing people into the performing arts program, and they want that spot. So they want to maintain that GPA, keep those academics, and participate in the academic program. And it's not me most of the time chasing them down. It's their buddies saying, "Hey, Stephanie, you gotta stay in this. If you want to stay in Sisters, you got to do this right thing on the grade." Or it's Stephanie who's saying, "My grades are good, and I'm going to go and help my teammate here because we're all in this together." So really creating that community and that peer-to-peer engagement. And to hear you talking about it now, where you're in a position where you can actually help folks, it's powerful stuff. And it is why I have stayed involved with SBI for the last 24 years. It started out with me calling record labels and being excited about that, and getting a better understanding of like how much impact this program can have. So I really appreciate your view on that. So tell us right now, I want to hear what you're doing for SBI and what the future is with your board, but also personally, who you're trying to connect with, who you want connecting with you.
Yeah. So anybody who's in the educational space, I'm just looking to definitely, I'm all about impact right now. And I realize I've been saying for the last year or so in different circles, I want to create greater impact. I want to create greater impact. And I recognize that the only way to do that is through collaboration. So people who are in the educational space, who are interested in looking at educational outcomes for underserved groups, people who just want to brainstorm about this model and whether or not this model that is rooted in the research that I did is something that might be a good fit for an organization that they're working with, and start to think about and brainstorm what replication might look like. Those would be good folks to talk to and talk with and brainstorm with. And anybody that just has any questions about any of it, that's fine too.
All right. And what's the best way folks can get in touch with you?
Sure. So I'm on LinkedIn, and my last name is pretty unique. So Stephanie Akunvabey, you can easily find me on LinkedIn. That's a good place to connect for sure. And my email is sakunvabey@gmail.com. You can totally email me there too.
Yeah, and I have dropped links to your fundraising page for the virtual gala. I've dropped links for the Eventbrite for tomorrow's Alumni Speak event. I've also have links down below for your LinkedIn and over to the side on Facebook, and I dropped into the comments as well. So I'm excited that Alumni will be connecting with you. I have some follow-up work myself. I know that I definitely want to connect you and Cynthia, who are both NYU graduates. I interviewed Cynthia, I think, on Monday, and I was actually talking to her about you. And so connect you. I mean, I've had the pleasure and opportunity to sort of hear some of these stories and connect with alumni in ways that alumni have not gotten a chance to. So I've been having the pleasure to connect people. So it's been very exciting. I will let you have the last word. If you would just promote what we got going on once again, and then say goodbye to folks, and I will play out our theme song to rock it out.
Sure. So definitely my last thing will be, please contribute to SBI. There's so many ways to do it. Financially, also time. We're always looking for volunteers, and there's lots of ways. So definitely reach out and keep an eye out for our virtual gala, which I am excited to see the final product. It's going to be amazing. Tune in. And that's it.
Well, that's amazing. All right. Very cool. All right. So I'm going to play our theme song. I'm going to let you say goodbye to everybody, and I will rock it out. Thanks.
Bye.
All right, here we go. We can dance it out.
This is the Alumni Connections Project. We all know Randolph is better than the rest. Even when you progress, you still gotta rep. A-Phil of Randolph Campus High School. But this is not a test, you should say it with your chest. Be proud of your origin, and if you are proud, support it then. Stronger together through
Thanks for doing this, Stephanie. Say Wolf and wait 1 second. Thanks, everybody.